To Independence Amplified Maryland, brought to you by the Maryland Centers for Independent Living. We are so excited to be here again this week after taking a week off last week. We have a great group today of presenters, well, group being two, and we've decided that following our physician-assisted suicide session that we would work on some advance directives and life insurance planning kinds of discussions. So I am going to turn it over to Sarah Basehart from Independence Now to kick us off.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. We have a very informative session ready for you with two speakers. So I'll just run down a little bit of how things are going to go, and that is that Patti Dorn from the Maryland Insurance Administration is going to speak first. She has a PowerPoint presentation that I'll be sharing and moving through as she presents, and then she'll take questions. If you're worried that you're going to forget the question before the time for questions, you're welcome to put it in the chat or jot it down so you don't forget, and then we'll be happy to take questions verbally as well at the end of her presentation. And then Anna Moretti from Montgomery Hospice is going to present on, oh, sorry, one second. Patty's presenting on life insurance, so sort of nuts and bolts of understanding life insurance in case you've heard about things through the years and never really fully understood all the options. This should help to get some things clarified for you. And then Anna's going to speak about advance directives, which are some important documents you might want to consider having in place in your life. I have them in place already, just in case, so that it directs folks on your choices and desires.
Sarah?
Yes. Yes?
Yeah, just quickly for legal purposes, we are recording this session, and in the state of Maryland, we need to inform you of that. So anything you say will be on YouTube next week. Thank you.
I guess consider yourselves warned at this point. So after Patty presents and takes questions, then Anna will present and take questions. Same format. They have PowerPoint presentations that were sent to you earlier today in your reminder, and we'll be using them on the screen. Without further ado, Patty, who is wearing her Maryland Insurance Administration shirt, just to be sure she's official today. So
I am official.
Thanks, Patty. I'm going to get your PowerPoint going here.
Thank you.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Dealing with a novice. Okay.
I don't know. So I'm going to talk to you guys about life insurance. My name is Patti Patricia. Doesn't matter to me. Dorn, and I'm with the Consumer Education and Advocacy Unit of the Maryland Insurance Administration. And I think the next slide is going to tell you a little bit more about that. Well, real quick, I'm going to go over who my agency is, what we do, types of life insurance, some frequently asked questions, some shopping tips, viatical settlements, finding a missing policy, and then some additional resources and contact information. So I am from the state agency called the Maryland Insurance Administration. Every state has an entity like ours. Every state has an agency that makes sure that the insurance companies follow the laws. We make sure that the agents and the brokers who operate in Maryland follow the laws, and the insurance companies follow the laws. We license them to operate in Maryland, so they get their licenses from us. We monitor the solvency of the insurance companies. And so what that means to you is that we make sure that the insurance companies that are operating in Maryland have the money to pay claims. And so that's a very conservative kind of accounting. So you're not purchasing insurance, life insurance, or it could be any kind of insurance. It could be auto insurance, renter's insurance, something like that, from a company that doesn't have the money to pay the claims. So it is part of our job to make sure that those companies that operate in Maryland are solvent. We also review and approve the insurance policy forms. So all that means is we review and approve the policies that are then issued to you that you decide to purchase. And we make sure that the rates that are charged for insurance products in Maryland. And when I say insurance products, I mean life insurance, auto insurance, homeowners insurance. We make sure that they're not inadequate. You don't want them to be inadequate because you don't want your insurance company to go bankrupt. You want them to be adequate, but you do not want them to be excessive, and you do not want them to be unfairly discriminatory. And we investigate consumer and provider complaints. So those are your complaints, and those are whatever your complaints are. If you have a complaint about an agent, you can file that complaint with us. If you have a complaint about a broker, you can file that complaint with the Maryland Insurance Administration. If you have a problem, you have a claim that's in process, say you were in an automobile accident and you're not happy with how that claim is being processed, you've been denied or it's just slow, you have the right to file a complaint with us and get us involved with the situation. There's a couple pages on here that there's going to be links. We're not going to show any of the videos, but just so you know, we have an entire YouTube page. The Maryland Insurance Administration has a YouTube page, and we have 100 different videos if you want to come and check out our page and get more information. Next slide. Oh, I forgot to set my timer. Okay, you can skip this page. Next slide. All right, so let's talk about life insurance. Life insurance may or may not be something that you're interested in. It may or may not be something that you need. The one thing that I will say is that there's certainly a lot of advertising everywhere you go, right? So the television shows, daytime TV makes you feel like everyone needs to have life insurance. Everyone should have life insurance. You know, and that's not necessarily the case. Some people have other ways to pay for final expenses, and some people don't have a need for life insurance. And if you think that you might be one of those people, try not to be too intimidated or swayed or bothered by all of this in-your-face advertising about life insurance, life insurance, life insurance. But if you are here and you are interested in life insurance, well, let's make sure that you understand it. And so people purchase life insurance to provide security for themselves and their loved ones. And so you're either going to be purchasing it for something like final expenses. And in some cases, some people purchase life insurance to leave some money to someone. So all policies are not the same. Some provide coverage for your lifetime, and others cover you for a specific number of years. And we'll talk more about that in some other slides. Some build up a cash value and others do not. And so let's look at the different types of life insurance. Next slide. So I'm going to start with term life insurance. Term life insurance covers you for a term of 1 or more years. So normally it isn't 1 year, but it could be. Normally a person purchases 10 years of term life insurance, or 20 or 30. And oftentimes term life insurance is what they get through their employer. So, you know, you're purchasing the life insurance that's offered at work, and they're putting in a little bit and you're putting in a little bit. And that's usually a term life insurance policy. And it may or may not end when your employment ends. It pays a death benefit only if you die during the term. So there's no cash buildup with term life insurance, but it does generally offer you the largest amount of protection for your premium dollar. So someone who is, say, 35 years old with little kids at home, who needs $500,000 of life insurance, because should something happen to them today, you know, you're looking at 20 years of their income needing to be replaced. Term life insurance is pretty much going to be the only thing that they can afford. Because once you get into the whole life insurance and once you get into that savings element, you know, with term life, maybe you'll be paying $60 a month. you get a $500,000 whole life insurance policy, and you're going to be paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month. And so term life, it offers the largest protection, but for your premium dollar, but you're not getting any savings element. When it's done, it's done. You've paid your premiums, you've purchased only the insurance part of it, and you have nothing at the end. Generally, term insurance offers lower premiums in early years, and it may increase as you get older. Next slide. Permanent life insurance, that's going to be the whole life insurance, the universal life insurance, the variable universal life insurance, and it's going to be most of the life insurance products that you're going to see advertised on television. And they do provide long-term financial protection. You can hold this policy for your entire life. Unlike the term policy is eventually going to end. I mean, there's a very good chance you'll outlive your term policy. But if you keep your whole life or your universal life policy up to date, there's a very good chance you'll hold on to it your entire life. They do include a death benefit, and in some cases, a cash savings. In most cases, a cash savings. Because of the savings element, the premiums do tend to be higher. I don't know, I'm gonna touch on this. We get a lot of questions about who can take out a policy on my life in the office, but I'm not really sure if you guys are all that interested in this, but I'll touch on it a little bit. Hold on, I have to move something on my screen. There we go. All right, so can someone else take out a policy on my life? Yes, but a stranger cannot buy a policy to insure your life in Maryland. To buy a policy insuring someone else's life, certain conditions must be met. What conditions must be met before someone can take out a policy on my life? Although there are some exceptions, if it's not a group policy, generally the person whose life is to be insured must be legally competent to enter a contract and apply for or consent in writing to the policy unless an exception applies. And so I think I'm just going to go on to the next slide. I don't think that you guys are really necessarily too concerned about random people taking policies out on your life. Although, I mean, it's just, it ended up in here because we get so many questions about that in our office. It appears to be a concern. So when can someone buy a policy on my life without my consent or me signing the application? Okay, your spouse can do that. If you lack the legal capacity to consent to life insurance and the person purchasing the policy has an insurable interest in your life, I mean, that can make sense. You were supporting somebody and for whatever reason, you don't have the capacity to make that consent, then that person can still purchase a life insurance policy on you. A parent, a step parent, or a spouse is purchasing a family policy that insures 2 or more family members, or the person to be insured is a minor and the purchaser has an insurable interest in the life of the minor. Next slide. And there's more. So the people who have an insurable interest in your life are those people with an insurable interest in your life, generally include you and individuals closely related by blood or law to you, such as a spouse or children. But others, such as an employer or business partner, might also have an insurable interest in your life. And that's true. Business partners have insurable interests in each other's lives. Business partners take out life insurance policies on each other for very good reasons. And then must your beneficiary have an insurable interest? This is important for everybody. So you get to name whoever you want as your beneficiary. You know what? You just love the neighbor next door and you don't have any interest in leaving your money to anybody else. If you buy a policy on your own life, you are the owner of that policy. As the owner of that policy, you can name anyone as the beneficiary, including your estate, a family member, a charity, a friend, or a stranger. You get to choose who your beneficiary is without limits. So here's some questions. I have a question up here. Do I have to be informed if someone purchases a policy on me? I don't think so. I don't think there's anything that states that you do have to be informed of that. And I can see why you might want to be informed of that. These next questions are common questions. These are like TV questions. These are like the morning television type advertisements. What about no physical exam? So what about companies that advertise no physical exam? Awesome, we just give it to everybody. Well, the insurance may be more expensive than if the company required a physical. And I think I think that's a bit intuitive to most people, right? When they say something like that, you can kind of assume that, well, they're probably offering it to everybody, but it's going to be offered at a premium. So although there's no physical, you'll probably have to answer a few broad health questions on your application. And what about life insurance ads that claim that you cannot be turned down? What is the catch? Well, these are guarantee issue policies where the company definitely is going to ask you no health questions. The company knows it's taking a risk. Hold on a second. I can't see it over there. Okay, because people with bad health could buy their policies. The company may balance the risk by charging higher premiums or limiting the amount of insurance you can buy. So basically, they're going to charge high premiums and you're not going to get a lot of insurance for those. Sometimes the premiums can be almost as much as the insurance. I mean, sometimes it can be more also. The question that just came up about kids, hold on just one second. Is it a smart investment for a child to take out a policy on a parent? It could be. It depends on the situation. If that makes sense and that child's able to pay those premiums, et cetera, there can be really good reasons for the child to take out a policy on the parent, sure. Next slide. Okay, so frequently asked questions for term life insurance. Why is term life insurance called temporary insurance? Well, because it only lasts for a specific period. And just that is not to say that it is bad. Term life insurance is a very, very important product. It fills a need that whole life insurance doesn't. You know, people who have to, say, replace their income for 20 years can't do it with whole life insurance. So term life insurance, I've noticed especially in Maryland, it gets a bad rap that it doesn't necessarily deserve. So what do I get when I buy term life insurance? Well, you have bought and received the company's guarantee that if you die during the term of the policy, it will pay the death benefit to your beneficiary or beneficiaries. Do I get any benefit if I don't die during the term of my policy? No, the policy pays no benefits. I understand, so this is permanent life insurance. I understand my permanent policy will be fully paid up at age 65. So this is common. What does that mean? It means you've made enough premium payments to cover the cost of insurance for the rest of your life. Great. But if you take any of that cash out, well, then you may have to start paying premiums again. So just FYI. This is one to listen to. What happens to the cash value in my policy when I die? It depends upon the terms of your policy. So know the terms of your policy. Read your policy. If you don't understand your policy, talk to your agent or call somebody at the insurance administration. It depends upon the terms of your policy. Under the terms of the policy, when you die, the insurer will pay only the death benefit, no matter how much cash value you had the moment before you died. but some whole life policies pay both. And so it's just important for you to know. It's important to remember that whether your policy pays only a death benefit or the cash value, any loans, including interest, taken out against the policy that you could have not repaid, that you haven't repaid, will be subtracted from the death benefit. The result is that your beneficiary could wind up with less than the face value. An insurance producer. So when we say insurance producer, we mean insurance agent or broker. An insurance producer has suggested that I buy term instead of whole life. Does it make sense to buy term and invest the difference? It can. It depends on your circumstances. Just remember, as you get older, term premiums increase. By investing the difference, you could use your investment to pay the higher cost of insurance in the future. And if your health deteriorates, you may not be able to purchase a new policy. So it's just something to think about, and you may wish to consult a financial advisor when making that decision. All right, some factors to think about when shopping. Determine what you want the life insurance to do. Is it to pay burial expenses? Will the death benefit be used to offset income you previously provided? And how much coverage will you need? So go into a conversation with an insurance agent or broker knowing the answers to these questions. You need to take a little bit of charge of the conversation, because I mean, you're speaking with somebody who works on commission. There's a lot of incentive to sell you the product. And so you need to come to the table knowing the questions that you want to ask and those answers. But if you don't, being comfortable enough to step away for a few days, do some research and get those answers. Find out how much you can afford. Ask if it's possible that the premium will increase, and if so, will you be able to afford it in the future? Does this policy require medical underwriting? This may include answering a series of health-related questions, and it may include a medical exam. Does the policy include a waiting period? And are you considering canceling an existing policy? So that's somewhat common. You're talking to an agent, you have a policy, they're trying to convince you that this one is better. Maybe it is. Maybe this is a perfectly legitimate exchange. Make sure you understand the consequences of canceling your current policy. Understand the policy that you're purchasing, and talk to a trusted family member or professional if you're unsure if the policy makes sense for you. Once you've purchased your policy, place a current copy of your policy with your will or with your estate paperwork in a safe place where your family or beneficiaries will look for it and have access to it. So most importantly, make sure that someone knows where to find the policy. For the sake of time, I'm going to skip this. Next. That was weird. Okay, real quick, viatical settlements. A viatical settlement is a written agreement for the sale of a life insurance policy to a third party. You can sell your life insurance policy. That is legal in Maryland. The owner or certificate holder of the life insurance policy sells the policy for an immediate cash benefit. At one time, most viatical settlements were for people with a life-threatening illness, but now anyone can do this. So if you are approached or if you are interested in selling your life insurance policy, I recommend going to our webpage. I recommend reading about viatical settlements, or you can just call. You can call our number, you can ask for me, or really anybody can talk to you about viatical settlements. Next slide. Finding a missing policy. So this is a big one. A lot of times insurance companies get bought up by another insurance company that got bought up by another insurance company, and now you can't track it down. Like, you know, mom had this, it has a name on it, but you can't get a hold of anybody. The National Association of Insurance Commissioners over the past couple of years has come up with a really great database for you to be able to find these things. The links are here. The links are on our website also. Again, I just want you to be aware of it. We recommend that you check bank accounts and bills for evidence of an existing policy, and that you check the safety deposit boxes and online accounts. Those are the things you're probably going to do. Then you can contact us at the Maryland Insurance Administration, and we're going to send you the link, or we're going to help you put that information that you need to find that policy. And then we have some additional resources as well. It sounds like you guys all got a copy of this. And so you should be able to click, and there's our information. So thank you guys. And I guess I'm here for questions now.
Did anyone have any questions that they didn't put in the chat that they wanted to ask Patty or about life insurance? Oh, let's see. I see Abiola. Okay, we have two questions. Abiola, you go ahead with unmute yourself and do yours, and then I'll read Nadine's.
Hi, Patricia. So life insurance is considered an asset for all purposes. I'm thinking of consumers who may want to get assistance applying for Medicaid or for other sorts of benefits. And so because so many of our consumers at SILS are receiving only either SSI income or SSDI income, when they're applying for benefits like Medicaid, you know, the question of having these kind of policies.
Yeah.
We want people to be honest.
This is my staff, Patty. So
Yeah.
I knew this question was going to come up. I fed it to Patty ahead of time because I was afraid it was going to come up.
You did.
Sure enough.
I did. I checked this out. It does look like, you know, it's the typical $2,500, but there's some exceptions with like the Slimby Quimby Medicare, where they can have more like 7,000 something in what, you know, this would count as an asset. So yes, the cash value in these policies is going to count as an asset.
So I'll add, Abiola, that I did check with our supports planning staff, because I know this has come up before when we're trying to help people, you know, stay on, you know, keeping their Medicaid. And what one of our staff said was that they've seen a couple different things happen when it's come up. One is that they name the beneficiary, the funeral home that they would like to use. They name that funeral home as the beneficiary. And then it's no longer considered an asset because they have no way of accessing that money. Once the beneficiary is named as the funeral home, they can't take a loan on the money. They can't do anything. It's not coming to them. It's not coming to their beneficiaries. But we would encourage you to check with Medicaid, you know, before you're making any changes with that, or Patty, I think probably that we would want to send them to Medicaid to get those answers. But that is what Beth at our office had mentioned that a couple people had done with their policies, Abiola, just FYI.
Yeah, and maybe the SHIP people would know too.
Possible, yep.
Maybe.
They're more Medicare than Medicaid knowledgeable, so
yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
Yeah, and Stacy's saying, and I just knew this was going to be a hot topic. Stacy's saying that it's her experience that it can affect SSI income as well. So maybe we need to have a quick session at some point where we bring our benefits counselors in, some of those folks who really, you know all that and can take some of those questions. We don't want to lead anyone down the wrong path about how it affects your Medicaid or SSI. There's a question in, Nadine asked, do you have staff available to assist with finding a policy? Oh, sorry, Nadine, go ahead.
It's okay, I can read it. Recently, I think it was last year, it took me a half a day because I check my bank accounts on a regular basis, and I noticed that my automatic payment was coming out but it wasn't going where it was supposed to go. And so I went and found my policy because I'm very organized like that. And I looked at the policy and I'm like, people are taking money out of my account and I have no clue who's doing it. And it turns out that my life insurance policy was sold 3 times, and I got no notification. I got nothing, but people are still taking money out of the account. And I was like, this is not right. So I had to hunt down who was the owner of my policy, found out that that company went out of business, sold my policy to someone else, and twice over, I had no clue who it belonged to. I was able, however, to like, one person sent me to another person said, so I didn't know that your website was there. I didn't know it was available. And so do you have, my question was, did you have people on staff that would be able to assist our consumers who may run into the same situation? Because it took me half a day myself hunting down who this policy is now with and trying to get them off my bank account because I had no clue. And then I had to go look for new life insurance because I don't like people taking money out without telling me you're taking money out of my account. So
I will tell you that life insurance policies get sold all the time. I mean,
Right.
it's gonna be difficult for you to find a policy that ultimately does not end up getting sold.
Well,
And
I check now every 3 months. I check.
yeah,
And that's a good thing to do. I find out because, like you said, things change. And now that I've moved from term life because I hit that 50 mark and everything went through the roof. And so now
I have
I'm
a
doing
quick question,
whole
too.
life instead of term life. So
yeah,
that just threw me for a loop that it was sold so many times and having to hunt that down. I wish I knew about your website. It probably would have only taken a few minutes, but now I can spread that news. But if in the event that someone else needs that service, do you have staff available that would be able to assist them?
Yeah, we do assist you if you call. It's actually not our website. It's the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, and we link to it on our website, and we can help you use it as well. But yeah, that is the place to go because then you don't have to go down that line. What was sold to here, and what was sold to here, and sold to here. You just do that one search. And yes, there are people at my job who are available to assist you, or you can do the search yourself. I've done practice searches myself to make sure that I understand how it works, and it is pretty user-friendly.
I'm gonna try and go there because sometimes working with consumers, especially in the housing part of it, all that stuff has to be produced. And sometimes they don't even know their insurance information number, or they've put that policy down 5 or 10 years ago and they have no clue where to get it. So it's kind of knowing this information will be
dates, addresses, birth dates, death dates, things like that can help you find a policy even without an insurance company.
Thank you
I have
so
a
much.
quick question.
Good information. Okay, Mike's question, and then there's one more in the chat, and then we
Sure.
got to move on.
And then you got to move. I know if I, through no fault of my own, end up in the hospital for 45 days and I end up missing a payment, do I have any rights other than those in my insurance contract related to missing a payment and wanting to try and preserve my term life insurance or life insurance?
Pretty harsh. I mean, they don't have to. You really should set up some sort of automatic system.
No, I have one, by the way. I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm just asking.
I mean, they can say, we get it. You missed a payment, no problem. But you know what else?
They don't have
It's
to.
also within the law for them to just cancel you.
Yeah. Okay.
Unfortunately.
I thought you'd probably say that, but I thought I better check.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's the answer.
There's one more question here. You cannot sell a term life insurance policy. Is that correct?
Actually, you can. You mean as a viatical settlement? You can. It is
I'm reading
possible.
the question as it is. I'm not sure if they're
Yeah, I think that's what they mean. So like the viatical settlements, you sell your life insurance policies. I think it used to mostly just be the whole life insurance policies, but it is possible to sell your term life insurance policies. It's possible. I don't know how common it is.
Okay, great. Thank you, Patty. Are
You're
there
welcome.
any other questions? Last call. Okay, thank you, Patty.
Yep, you're welcome. Thanks,
And I know
everybody.
you have to leave in like a half hour, so if we
Yep.
don't see you, thank you very much for all the information and sharing. And hopefully everyone's received the PowerPoint, so you have all of Patty's links in case it's good for future reference. All right, then we're going to turn things over to Anna, and I'm just going to pull up your here. Okay.
Great. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah? Okay, great. So my name is Anna Moretti. I'm a nurse. I also went to law school, but I wouldn't call myself a lawyer anymore. I've been mostly sticking with my work with hospice. I'm an advanced practice clinician. That means I'm just a nurse practitioner. And my prior history was mostly the intensive care unit, general medicine, procedure labs. I've kind of seen it all. So my goal here today is just to discuss some of the legal and practical issues regarding advanced care planning. Yeah, that's my goal. I have my email there if anybody should have any questions. I did not think about putting a resource page at the end, which I should have. So I'll go through some resources at the end that you can have available to you. So basically just an overview, what is advanced care planning? So advanced care planning is really some effort that we put into discussing our future choices related to the expected trend of specific disease. It is general discussions about life support, invasive procedures, the trajectory of the disease, that type of thing. Usually these discussions are with your healthcare provider, but really everyone should be having these with their caregivers, their family members, so that everyone who's involved in your life has some general idea about your wishes, your desires. And so advanced care planning is like the big umbrella term. And under advanced care planning there are these tools that you can use to do advanced care planning. So yes, you can have a discussion with your physician and that's the end of it. But really to make these wishes known, completing an advance directive is really one of the better tools that you can use. So there are many advance directives. There are written or oral statements with specific instructions. And the instructions can just state your wishes or they can give you the ability to appoint someone to more or less step into your shoes and make decisions for you when you're no longer able to make those decisions. So, just some general terms you'll hear out there, and then I'll go through them and explain what they are. We have living wills, we have durable power of attorney for healthcare, we have 5 wishes, which is a type of advance directive, we have ethical wills, and having done advanced care planning for over 20 some years, there are so many different types of advance directives out there. So what is a MOLST order? So a MOLST order is a type of advanced care planning, but it's not something you complete on your own. A MOLST order is really the physician writing an order for specific items that are relative to your care. And mostly it documents decisions about cardiopulmonary resuscitation, the use of ventilators, the use of feeding tubes, those types of things. But the MOLST order is critical for when you're receiving care in your home, so that if you should choose to die in your home, then if you were to call an ambulance, let's say you panicked and you call an ambulance, the MOLST order would tell the EMS people not to do CPR. They would do everything in their power to make you comfortable. They could transport you, but they would not start chest compressions or put a tube down your throat to put you on a ventilator. So that's kind of the scope of the whole advance directive lingo. Go ahead, next slide. Okay, so what are we assuming when we do advanced care planning? So what the healthcare provider is assuming is that we are able to make some presumptions about the trajectory of your disease. We have tools, we have scales, we have scans, we have tests and procedures that follow you along through the trajectory of disease. We also can recognize decision points. So there are decision points in almost every disease process. So if you have cancer, if you have COPD, if you have ALS, or whatever disease you may be dealing with, there are points where there's a red flag that allow us to know that something has changed. And that's like a flag that says maybe now we should discuss this or that. Okay. So why do these even exist? Why do we even have advance directives? Well, what we saw was we saw a bunch of different societies who were creating different avenues for people to take control over their end-of-life process. And what we saw coming up on the one side was, technology and a very paternalistic medical community basically deciding for everyone and anyone what treatments they could and could not have. And so these organizations created, it was more of a grassroots effort from the bottom up. People decided, they created the living will, and then multiple states started to take action and create rules and laws regarding advance directives. Then eventually there were 2 sentinel cases that then led to the Supreme Court chiming in on, making decisions, and then people stepping into the shoes of someone else to make decisions for them when they were no longer able or capable of speaking for themselves. So we have a federal law that applies to all the states. And the federal law has these 4 basic constructs that say, you, the state, you go out and you make this law based on these 4 things. So the federal law is called the Patient Self-Determination Act, and that came around in the early 90s, around 1990. I happened to be in law school right around this time. So for me, being a clinician, I was already a nurse for many years, maybe 10 years. I got to meet the attorneys and everything who started some of this work. So what does the law say? So it says basically everyone, all providers of healthcare. So it's hospices, hospitals, home healthcare agencies, nursing homes, everyone except for physicians' offices have to inform their patients about the right to participate and direct their own healthcare, the right to accept or refuse treatments, the right to prepare directives, and the right to know what the policy is of the hospital or nursing home or agency that you're getting care from. Unfortunately, when this all started out, the information about advance directives came somewhere between your menu and your TV instructions. So no one really was paying a lot of attention to advance directives. And honestly, if you're going in for open heart surgery and, Nancy nurse walks up to you and says, hey, do you want to create an advance directive? It really makes you a little frightened because maybe, you're thinking, oh my goodness, she thinks I'm going to die during my open heart surgery. But really it was the law. And we just didn't know how to apply the directive at that time. And we did a really poor job of it. So the federal law, the Patient Self-Determination Act, Maryland has its own law called the Maryland Healthcare Decisions Act. It's one of the best laws out there. When I was working in New York City, I got to work with Jack Schwartz, who helped draft this law. And so it was really one of the laws that were held out to other states as an example of how the law should be drafted. And under the Maryland Healthcare Decisions Act sits the MOLST law, which I talked about earlier, the medical orders for life-sustaining treatment. And that's relatively new within the last 5 years. Okay, so what are the different types of advance directives? So if you're going to write an advance directive, we first have the living will. It's kind of the oldest form out there. In the beginning, they use really non-specific language that talked about, I'm on the next slide, Sarah. It's okay.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to
okay.
manage the chat and then it keeps thinking I'm clicking.
There we go. So we have what kind of advance directives? So in the beginning, the living wills were really kind of vague. And they talked about things like heroic measures, or they just had these very vague terms that really people in medicine didn't really know how to interpret. So you had so many interpretations that they almost became meaningless. And then we had what developed the durable power of attorney for healthcare. And that allowed people to then put someone in charge of speaking for them when they could not speak for themselves. And then we have many other versions of written advance directives. Like I said, the 5 wishes, the ethical wills. Now remember, each state has a law. So there are about 50 different types of advance directives out there. And so when you're in a state like Maryland, Maryland will recognize other states' advance directives. So if you're from Virginia and you happen to be receiving care in Maryland, your Virginia advance directive will be honored. So the basic requirements in Maryland are the signature of 2 witnesses, the date, and the signature of the person completing the form. Now your witnesses are only saying that you completed the form and signed the form of your own free will, that you were not forced to do it, there was no duress, there was no, nothing unusual. They're not saying that they know what you're signing. They're not saying that they know what's in the document. They're just saying they are witnessing you signing the document, okay? The other type of advance directive that's recognized in Maryland is an oral advance directive. So if you as a patient say to your doctor, I want this person to make choices for me, that's considered an oral advance directive, okay? And so that the physician would have to have a witness there, and that would be written in the medical record that you made this decision. I've also seen videotaped decision-making where the person says, I know I have this disease, this is how I want my care to be in the future. Okay, so I repeated myself a little bit on this, but I want to talk a little bit about how the decision, how the agent is required to make decisions. So we have the living will where it's just you writing your own decisions, right? Your own choices. The durable power of attorney appoints the agent, and now the agent has to make choices for you because you're no longer able to speak for yourself. So the agent can look for your decisions in your living will. So let's say you did write a living will, that would give the agent some type of roadmap to making decisions. The agent would also be asked to follow your wishes, and if your wishes were not known, you'd have to follow kind of what was in your best interest, given all the different avenues that you're dealing with. So what are the treatments? What are the disease? You know, it's a pretty difficult process, which means that's why you should need to appoint an agent who's comfortable making these very difficult decisions. Go ahead. Okay, so how are decisions made? Like I said, you get to make your own decision unless you do not have capacity, right? So what is capacity? Capacity is a term of art in medicine, okay? It's not a legal decision or a legal, recommendation. You don't go to a court to determine decision-making capacity. So the elements of medical decision-making include the ability to understand the information, appreciate the medical situation that you're in, have some type of discussion where you understand kind of like the benefit of it and the burden of it, and be able to communicate your choice based on all that information. Okay, so what happens if you never fill out an advance directive in Maryland? So Maryland codified or put into law a proxy. So a proxy is someone under the law, under this format in the law, who steps into the shoes to make a decision when no one is appointed, okay? So when I say it's codified, that means that the law already gives you the list. You don't have to make up your own list. So the first person would be the guardian. That means you've already been to court, a guardian has been appointed to you, and the guardian gets to make these decisions. Usually in all the guardianships that I have read, there is some carve out with limitations, structure, format to making end-of-life care decisions. Sometimes the guardian's not allowed to make those decisions unless they go back to court. So I've seen that quite frequently. So then it's the patient's spouse or domestic partner, an adult child of the patient, the parents of the patient, adult siblings, and then it goes down to friend if there are no family members. Okay. Okay. Again, how are these choices made? So no matter whether you have an appointed agent or a proxy who's coming in, how and what information are they trying to gather to help make these decisions? So written decisions from previous discussions. So maybe there was an event in the news and you said, nope, I don't ever want to be on that, or I don't ever want that, or you made yourself known because you had such an opinion, or you said, yes, I could definitely do that. Or yeah, I could definitely, do that for, have a feeding tube or ventilator or whatever. Those pieces of information are critical pieces of information for your agent or proxy. So it's important that your agent or proxy know and understand what's important to you based on your values, based on how you lived your life, your beliefs, any of those types of things, what you could tolerate, not tolerate. And then also, understanding the risks, the benefits of treatment and procedures. So I tend to use the description of CPR. If you watch TV, if you've ever watched, soap operas or ER or Chicago PD, and they do CPR and everybody lives. Well, that's not really how it works, because, your chances of surviving an out of hospital heart attack or your heart stopping and having a time gap in between when you are found and when CPR begins is very low. It's down into the 5%. It's less than double digits. Now, if you're in a hospital and you have a monitor hooked up to you and you have professionals who know how to do everything quickly, even when you have a life-limiting illness, your percentage is still only around 15%. And the odds are you'll never recover to the point where you were when you, before you had that CPR event. So the numbers are not in our favor when it comes to cardiopulmonary resuscitation. If you're young, you're healthy, your heart just happens to stop, your odds are a little bit better. That maybe there's that machine that we all see everywhere in the airport and everything, and you can have a defibrillator right at your disposal. But by and large, the numbers are not with us. So that's what I'm saying when I mean when I'm saying understand the risks and benefits of the treatments and the procedures. So is this any different? Is advanced care planning for individuals with disabilities any different? So I would say no, that the framework remains the same. There are so many different formats. I just came across some format from California that actually used pictures, that people could circle pictures to help with understanding, to help with language. And then so many advanced directives have been translated in different languages to capture some of the nuances of descriptions of medical treatments and everything. Maryland law recognizes basically any type of directive as long as it fits within the confines or the structure, the box, if you will, of Maryland law. So what that means is you can't write at this time in the state of Maryland, you can't write an advance directive saying, I want physician-assisted suicide, because it's not legal in this state. Okay, so you can't write something or say, I want my friend to give me these pills when, you can't write that because it's just not legal. So individuals with disabilities should have the opportunity, just like everybody else, to plan for serious illness and to have their wishes known and respected. How best to help patients and their decision makers? Again, this is no different than what I tell everyone else who is hoping to complete an advance directive. Proactive advanced care planning, because what we know for sure, and what as Oprah would say, what I know to be true, is that it's 100% true that all of us will eventually die. Now, we can just hope that it doesn't, or you can kind of plan proactively for those events and take some responsibility and some steps towards being part of that decision making. So it's really important that we help people discover and honor treatment wishes, and we can do that as proxies and agents through observing how people carry on their lives, interacting with individuals over time before the end of life occurs. That's why your caregivers, your family members, they all kind of have some idea of how you live your life and what you believe. Decisions to withhold or withdraw may be appropriate given the underlying disease, but not because the person has a disability. So, when I read the position statement, what they were talking about is, physicians shouldn't not offer treatment because you have a disability, nor are they obligated to offer you something if it doesn't really fit the underlying illness. So if someone is dying from cancer, you wouldn't necessarily always offer tube feeding or ventilator support or anything like that. So I would argue that it's really the same, that we use the same framework and we help patients the same way move towards completing advance directives. And that's all I have. I'm happy to take your questions.
So we have a few questions in the chat box, Anna. The first one is, I want to do a full body donation. I will have one card in my wallet, and who to give my expired body to? Who would hold the second card?
I don't know much about the cards. I know that the anatomy board, that's really one of the places that we work with for full donation. And I don't know anything about the cards themselves. I would imagine that the funeral director, whoever, my experience is that the anatomy board has some communication prior to death, and that they will do the pickup. But if the funeral home director comes to do the pickup, then that person may then have that card that then gives it to the anatomy board. But my only experience has been through the anatomy board.
Okay, the next question is, if someone doesn't appoint a representative, can there be a conflict between different parties who have equal claim to be a proxy?
Yes. So if you have 6 siblings and 3 agree with one thing and 3 agree with something else, yes, that's definitely a conflict. And in Maryland, within the Maryland Healthcare Decisions Act, there is an avenue to resolve conflict through either an ethics committee or some kind of counseling, so that we can get people to kind of come to a consensus. So I always tell people to have an odd number of children. So for that reason.
That's a different kind of planning, but yeah.
I know, right? But yeah, we see that quite often.
I'm sure. Do you have any suggestions for how to do an advance directive with someone who has dementia and is easily stressed by questions that he can't understand?
So again, going back to the one slide, dementia early on is, a lot of times people have kind of this in and out type of thing. And so during times of lucidity, I would say the general question that has to be asked and answered is, who do you trust to make choices for you when you can't give an answer? And that, I think, is the single most important question to have answered, because there have been studies that substantiate that people can understand that very basic question even in the early stages of Alzheimer's dementia.
Great. Are there other questions that people didn't put in the chat but want to take themselves off of mute to ask?
Yes, this is Shafan. I have a question.
Please go ahead, Shafan.
Okay. So do you recommend a lawyer to help you with all these forms? Because to me, it seems like there's so much legal things that are beyond my scope. Would that be recommended, or is this just something you go online, fill out, and have a witness to notarize it?
So
Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. The Maryland law does not require a lawyer. None of the laws for advance directives really require a lawyer to be part of advanced care planning. And I will tell you that when you go, like, say, to a financial consultant, they will make your will and advance directives part of the bigger picture of financial planning. Now, in Maryland, there's no notary needed. It's still just 2 witnesses and your signature.
So
Now,
I had a question about that. When I was looking at filling one out here a few months ago, there was some reference to, was it the Orphans Court or some court of wills that I had to send it to in order for it to be valid? Does that
no,
ring a
that's
bell?
not an advance directive. I think that would be your actual
The
will.
actual will. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. These are not. Yeah. These are not really connected to your actual will. It's just that they usually take part in some bigger kind of planning process.
Gotcha. Thank you. Yeah.
But I wanted to. So if you go online to the U.S. Attorney, like the Maryland U.S. Attorney's Office, they will have an entire section dedicated to advanced care planning. And you could just even Google advanced care planning in Maryland, and there will be tons of resources. You can download a document for free. I always tell people that if they do an advance directive with an attorney, sometimes the legalese will freak doctors out. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. They will just, there will be gold stamps and herefores and thereofs, and nothing makes, doctors more nervous than those types of legal documents. Most clinicians now are very accustomed to the Maryland forms. They're not the greatest forms in the world. I won't pretend to say that there aren't confusing pieces, but they're at least something that you can get started with, to start the conversation.
I find those forms and Shafan and everyone, the Maryland forms, really pretty straightforward and not too long, so that people don't get overwhelmed by all of it.
Right.
And the thing that I think is the most important is that it can at least put on paper who you want making those decisions and the kind of things you're okay with and not okay with. And that's the most important. I mean, the rest of it, it is what it is, but at least you feel like you have more control over who's going to make those decisions for you, so that, like the other question, if you have 6 siblings and they're going to fight over what's going to happen, that at least which you've chosen the one you want to make those choices. So it's just getting a couple of things down on paper is really meaningful.
Right.
There's another, Lori Ellenoff was mentioning that you can do estate planning with a professional and advanced directives, and living wills can be part of all of that work. We know that can get expensive though. So that's right.
Yeah, very expensive.
Great that Anna was mentioning, unless maybe Lori has a resource for us, but the forms online can be.
Rocketlawyer.com offers free forms, including living will / power of attorney and advance directive. And I think maybe Anna already mentioned it, the Maryland Attorney General's office website.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that has a template there that can be used. But I have a question myself, and that is, because you mentioned dementia, at what point would someone be considered to be incapacitated in order to execute an advance directive or a living will, if Patricia's still on here? No.
Yeah, so what we've done in hospitals is we apply, you know, the definition of the capacity, the you know, basic understanding of the questions being discussed, and then, you know, the ability to kind of weigh some of the choices, and then the ability to communicate that choice. And that's generally the medical test for decision-making capacity. And with someone with dementia, if they're in a hospital, they may go in 2 or 3 times to assess based on the time of day, medication schedule, things like that. But again, that gets me back to the one easy question: who would you want to make these decisions for you? You know, we also get this issue in cultural, you know, culturally there are things that are very different than how we make, you know, end-of-life decisions in this country. So in some cultures, people aren't allowed to be told that they are dying from a disease. And so we often have to work around that by asking questions like, who do you want to make decisions for you? Is there any other information you would like to know? And so, you know, I would say that our law in Maryland gives us enough room to practice within different, you know, situations. And dementia, again, you know what's coming, so you're planning earlier as opposed to waiting till later is always the better option.
Well, thank you so much, Anna. I
Mhm.
appreciate it. I know this is great information for all of our staff at the Centers for Independent Living to carry on to people they serve, as well as all the individuals on the call. So we really appreciate your
My pleasure.
clear explanation and sharing.
And the website is always available too if there's people feel like they need additional you know, resources to support decision making.
Thank you. I want to give just a few minutes as we get ready to close things out here. I know that Cheryl Grossman wanted to make an announcement, so I want to give her an opportunity to do that.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Cheryl Grossman here. Just wanted to really quickly let folks know that I am going to be doing a Zoom call. And unfortunately, I'm using a free account. So the only way I have to do it is through the computer instead of phone only. So I apologize for that in advance. If anyone needs accommodations, let me know. I believe that Katie can get you connected with me. So if you want to email Katie with your email address, I will get the Zoom information to her within the next hour, and she can get it to you. But the Zoom call webcast thing will be at 7 p.m. this evening for the purposes of discussing some barriers, disability barriers to vaccine pre-registration across the state. Each county seems to be doing their own issue. The pre-registration forms are not the same. Many of them are not accessible to screen readers. We've identified a bunch of other barriers that we are elevating, but we want to hear your experiences trying to pre-register. And we're collecting personal stories. So please let us know if you're interested in being in that call. I have been asked to make it real quick, so 15 minutes, and then I will present what we're trying to do. And then I will stay on longer for people who have personal questions and want to get me materials after that. So again, email Katie.
Katie had to jump off. Katie had to jump off, Cheryl. So if they can email me, this is Sarah.
That's fine.
I'm going to put my email, or you can share your email in the chat box if that
I can't get it in the chat, but
Not
if
you.
someone
I
else
meant
can do
if people want to get it, give
Yes.
us your information and then I'll I'll follow back up, but I'll put my email in as well.
it. Okay, great. It's PRD2BBLOOMIE1, proud to be Bloomy1 at hotmail.com. And it's a little bit long, and I know that that's why we were using someone else's. But I will get that Zoom information out. So if you didn't catch that, get in touch with Sarah. I will get the Zoom info out. And I do appreciate folks around the state letting us know what barriers you're having. And we will try to elevate that as best as we can. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Cheryl. We were trying to allow just a couple of minutes at the end of each session now, and we have moved our time to 2 to 3:15 to allow for a full IAM session, as well as just a little bit of time to share about legislative issues as we are now in the swing of things in Annapolis. So if anyone else has anything that they needed to share, wanted to share about the legislative session or upcoming events, and then I guess we will close things out. Next week's session. Mike, do you want to announce about next week's session?
Sure. Next week, we're going to have Josh Bassel on with us. Josh is going to talk about a new app that he's working on to help people who need to find an accessible gas station, find accessible gas. It will find the closest place to you and get you directions to get there, etc. He's going to talk a lot more about that.
Great.
Hi, this is Brittany. This is Brittany with ARI. I'm their peer support specialist. I was actually reaching out to all of the CILs in the state of Maryland. I have sent the directors some emails, but I was trying to get in touch with anybody that I haven't gotten in touch with yet to reach out to all the peer specialists in different CILs. And I wanted to kind of get in touch with you guys to see what you guys are doing, what barriers you're up against. So if you could contact me, my email is BRIEMAN@arinow.org. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thanks, Brittany. Anyone else have announcements?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Sarah, for giving me the opportunity to share an announcement about my program. My name is Tanya Goodman, and I'm the director for the Maryland Assistive Technology Loan Program. And we're seeking candidates to serve on the ATLP Board of Directors. We have an 11-member board of directors. 3 are State Department representatives. 4 are members of the public that have disabilities or those that support individuals with disabilities. And then 4 members of the public that have experience with finance, lending, or accounting. There are currently 2 vacant slots to be filled by consumers with finance, lending, or accounting. The ATLP board is a volunteer, governor-appointed board that can serve up to 2 4-year terms. The main work of the board is to provide decisions on financial loan applications for constituents who are seeking to borrow funds to purchase assistive technology, home modifications, and non-adaptive and adaptive vehicles. All applicants to the program are consumers who cannot otherwise afford to purchase technology or who have been turned down for a loan through conventional lending. And many times our program is their last resort. The board meets by Zoom 2 times a year in their biannual meetings to discuss the policies and procedures of the program, brainstorm opportunities for development and growth, and advises the ATLP staff on a variety of matters. The board members do not need any underwriting experience. Loan program staff provide extensive training, reviewing past applications and how to analyze a credit report. On average, our board reviews up to 5 applications a week, although depending on the season, it could be a little more or less. ATLP staff send loan application requests by email to the board once a week, along with a financial summary and credit report, and the board reviews these requests and sends back their votes on each application. If you or anyone that you know would be interested in serving on the loan program board of directors, you can contact me directly, and then I can go over more about the program, what your responsibilities would be, and we just would go over more at that time.
Do you want to give me your phone number, Tanya? Put it in the box.
Sure. Sure. My phone number is 410-554-9244. Or they can reach me at Tanya, so it's TANYA .Goodman, so it's GOODMAN, the number 1 at maryland.gov.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to repeat your phone number for me. I apologize.
Sure. Oh, no worries. 410-554-9244.
Got it. Okay, any other, I've put Tanya's information, probably many of us have shared the information on the board, on our social medias and so on. So you may have already seen the information, but thank you, Tanya. I forgot to call you out by name, so.
Oh, no worries. Thank you so much. Have a good day, everybody.
So, any last minute things, and then we will say goodbye until next Monday. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.